Hey everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. I have a video all about relapses, how they work, the mistakes we make, the mistakes I've made, how to actually handle relapses, the reality of relapses, and everything in between, and a little bit about sleep too, fear of going backwards, not sleeping, being tired. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button. We have lots of great coaching services, one-on-one coaching, webinar services. Email info@ocdrecovery.com. Again, that's info@ocdrecovery.com to learn more about those services. So relapses are a part of everyone's journey, okay? So I have basically four parts in this that I'm going to talk about. What a relapse is, why it's fear, how it works, what we do wrong, how to actually go about changing relapses in the way that we accept them in the moment, because we can't just rid ourselves of those sensations. And then basically a closing quote, closing statement, recapping everything. So first of all, what are relapses? Relapses are based off fear. So the fear of going backwards, the fear of developing a new theme, or the fear of being stuck forever. Now there's many other factors inside the fear loop, but those are the ones I like to stick with primarily, even though it does go much deeper than that. Sleep-related fears, health-related fears, death-related fears, all kind of correlating into that fear. And before I go into any of those four sections, the first thing I want to talk about is a myth that I made a post about in the What's Up groups today, talking about, and I've seen this myth be pretty prevalent, that there's not always a core fear. And I would highly disagree with this. There is always a core fear present, always. If you have chronic anxiety and your symptoms are perpetuating, chronic shame, guilt, anxiety, depersonalization, derealization, all the other symptoms in between, because remember OCD is called the great mimicker, there's more than likely a core fear present. Sometimes that core fear is so subtle, such as the fear of being stuck forever, and symptoms persisting, that many people think that their brain is broken or something is wrong. The other mistake that we make when it comes to, oh, well, there's no core fear present, is because people have picked their core fears, maybe the fear of rejection, they've worked on them, they feel a little bit better about that acceptance-wise, and the symptoms are still perpetuating. That's because the fear actually wasn't worked on. So the illusion that there's no core fear is incorrect. There is always 100%, not 99, 100% is a core fear present if you have chronic OCD symptoms that are perpetuating and you're kind of coasting and not putting the work in. Also, just because you're working on your fears, bringing down your compulsions and avoidance behaviors, does not mean you're going to feel better with that in the correlated time response. It doesn't work like that. You might not feel better for months. You might have symptoms that come and go for a year or two whilst you're working on the core fear. That's why a lot of people think that, no, I don't have a core fear. There's always a core fear. I promise you that. So remember, there's relapses and setbacks are part of the process. So you can go in it with two perspectives. Perspective number one is a mistake that we all make. Oh my gosh, relapses are terrible. This is the worst thing ever, which has no ROI, return your investment. Or you go into relapses with a more accepting perspective, which is harder to do, but can be done. And that is based around, oh, these are part of the journey. This makes sense. This is why this is going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And remember, the big key about all of this is education. So educating yourself in any sector in life, on maybe a business you want to start, on how to be a better investor, how to recover from OCD. This is the key thing. And when you're looking at people who to take advice from, because there's lots of yelling and flashy videos, when you look at a lot of the content out there, this is not just OCD, but in general, a lot of that content is wishy-washy and it's masked by all this disillusionment. And it's not, the value is actually not that great. This is why I don't put filters on my videos. This is why I just talk straight, because a lot of sufferers are kind of taken aback by that, because they're like, they see some woman like dancing around with like, this is this, this is this, this is that. And that's understandable, but that value is usually garbage. It's usually garbage value. And that's just the way life is with the marketing and everything. So how it works, how a relapse actually operates. So I'm going to read it directly from this little chart I wrote. So let's say someone is 6 months in and they've been working on OCD recovery for 6 months. Congratulations, that's awesome. Maybe they've read most of the books. They have a decent understanding. One day they wake up and 20 minutes after waking up, they feel the worst they felt in, say, 4 months, maybe since the beginning. They understandably think, that they've gone backwards, that they're never going to recover. I've been there a million times. So maybe the setback lasts 3 weeks. Maybe it lasts 2 months. Inside those 2 months, what happens is the thermometer goes up 0 to 100. So it convinces you in a matter of minutes that you've made no progress. I've seen people, I've done this. I've had periods of months and months and months and months and months where I've been in a great spot. And I had like a 3-day relapse where I thought everything was over. It's very convincing, very convincing. If it wasn't as convincing, OCD wouldn't be a disorder. So inside that relapse, you scramble to apply the tools. I like to use the analogy of what people do is they'll buy something in the stock market on a high trend. It's called a bullhorn. They'll buy up here without looking at previous charts. Then it starts to sink back down and they sell. So they bought high and sold low. Pretty sure that's the opposite of what many traders want to do. OCD recovery works the same way. What they do is they only work on recovery when they're suffering, which then turns into a forcing of acceptance, an understandable forcing of acceptance. And then they never work on OCD recovery when they're feeling well. I got asked the other day, do you still have to work on recovery when you're at the stage that you're at? Of course. It's like an alcoholic who's been sober for 20 years. It's a great analogy by Rob. You have to be vigilant to a degree. You don't have to be hyper vigilant. Some things I agree with AA. Many things I do not. Teaching people this new hyper vigilant, like you need to always be on guard. The fear of relapse, the fear of fear. We work with a lot of people who struggle with drugs and alcohol, and this is what happens. It's because without knowing this, educating them on the benefits of staying, say, sober, for an example, the benefits of working on your rational beliefs, but you'll never be able to get 100% certainty. Now, many people have said, I know for a fact I'll never relapse. I know for a fact I'll never relapse on drugs, alcohol, OCD, and then they relapse and then they spiral. Instead of where I'm at, there's a really good chance I won't. But I could. I definitely could because I'm human and I'm fallible. That, in my opinion, is the best way to handle any of that stuff. But that's a different story. So then they force the acceptance and the cycle continues. So that's the mistake that we make. 6 months in, huge relapse, haven't really been working on the tools, scramble to apply the tools, which equals a forcing behavior, which jacks up even more. Now the cycle is compounding again, over and over and over. When the best way to handle setbacks, mind you, this took me 3 years to learn properly. Excuse me. I just had some amazing Sour Patch Kids. So good. Is when you have a setback, allow it to be there as best as you can. Difficult, right? Because it's so convincing, it's so easy to jump on it. So allow it to be there as best as you can. You don't have to change anything per se, and you could dispute in a few weeks. That is the key. This takes practice and more of an understanding of the internal surrender. It doesn't just happen overnight. You're not going to be able to just jump on this and get rid of this right away. So remember, the mistakes that we make, have a flare-up, setback, we jump on it, try to force the tools. That doesn't work. Instead of allowing it to be present, going about our day as best as we can, and then going from there. That's a really key thing to work on. And the last thing I wrote here is each setback is an opportunity to learn. So what have we covered? We covered how it works, the mistakes that we make, jumping on it. Okay, that's a big one. A battery just went. Best ways to handle setbacks once you educate yourself on how they work and where setbacks come from, which is usually the fear, the fear of going backwards. OCD wants to pull you back. It wants to pull you back. I like to call it the safety disorder. I look at OCD in a very practical sense, so that way if anything pops up in my life, I think very rationally, I have a disorder. It's more than likely genetic. Even in long stage recovery, it can rear its head from time to time. If you don't look at it in the most practical sense, it's very easy to trip you up again when you have these relapses, early, middle stages, which you will. So hopefully this relapse video was a good knowledge base on what we do wrong and how to actually work on it. I've been trying to formulate my videos very methodically in a way where I'm staying on track more. Don't get me wrong, I love to joke around, but sometimes one of my big weaknesses is getting off track. And I know that about myself now, and I didn't want to admit it. Some of your biggest weaknesses might be not accepting that you have OCD, not accepting that relapses are part of the process. So thank you so much for watching this video. Remember, again, if you have any questions, please email info@ocdrecovery.com, coaching services, webinar services, and always comment down below and let me know if you want to see more videos about relapses, etc. Thank you so much, guys, and as always, have a great day.